What's the best accidental nudity you've ever seen? When I was in college there was a super hot Korean girl that used to often ask me to help her out interpreting lecture notes because English wasn't her first language. One day after reading through some material she said she needed to get home because her mother was visiting. A few minutes after she left, I noticed she'd forgotten her phone on the desk, so I grabbed it and ran towards the car park to find her. As I get there I could see her across far side of the car park standing between her car and the one next to it, kind of ducking down a little behind her open car door. As I got closer, I realized that she was just looking in her handbag for her phone. So I gave it to her and she was really appreciative. Then on my way back I accidentally saw a buzzed guy with his junk out. It was the best. Damn misdirect. When I was about 10 I was at my cousin's house for a sleepover. I had to be the youngest one there. My cousin was about 16 and she had her friends over as well. We were all in our PJs. My male cousins decided to pick on me to impress the female friends there. Well, they ended up making me cry and I must have been a pitiful sight because my cousin's friend took pity on me and attempted to console me. She leans forward and wraps her arms around my head, my forehead resting just under her chin. Remember, we were all in PJs, so I open my eyes and get a perfect view down her top to see her sweet, braless perky breasts. It was the sweetest thing my prepubescent eyes had ever seen. I totally milked that moment as long as I could. Edit. I mentioned that I had to be the youngest one there because it was mostly 16-year-olds and I was that annoying little brother that my parents forced on my bro and cousins whenever they went anywhere or did anything. That day it was not so bad at all. Milked. One night in college I was walking through a dorm parking lot, looked over and saw a girl taking her shirt off in front of the window. Great track. Found out 3 years later that was my now wife, 2 years before we even met. Edit. I responded to a comment with the details, adding them here as well. I knew the other person who lived in that room. One night Wiffy and I were discussing old roommates and the mutual friend was brought up. I started connecting the dots and said something like, was that your whatever year? Stars aligned and we took it as an omen. I was working a Trans-Siberian Orchestra show and the blonde violinist came backstage. She took her dress off and put another on in an instant. Back on stage she went. Circa 20 speechless dudes standing there in awe. If you're involved in performances, it's not unusual at all. Hell, in high school plays, we would just change backstage as fast as we could to get back out there for another scene. We were a group of teenagers, around 5 guys and 4 girls, and we got pretty used to seeing each other in our underwear. It was awkward at first, and everyone would try to race to the bathroom, but eventually you just get over it. New York City apartment. Neighbor's bedroom window faced mine, and was about 10 feet away. She never turned her light off, ever. Slept with her light on. She must have had a mirror next to that window, because she would frequently stand there naked looking at herself, all of herself. From what I could tell she was a grad student. Edit. This also confirmed my long-held theory that women don't understand that windows remain transparent from the outside at night when the lights in the house are on. Went to a theme park before I was even in my teens and I noticed another gal wearing a tube top getting upset with her younger brother as he tried to grab something from her hands. She reeled in whatever it was she was holding close to her chest and the next thing I know, her top dropped and some of the most glorious breasts my prepubescent eyes had ever laid upon appeared mere feet away. Her brother had grabbed a bit more than the object he wished to retrieve and had accidentally pulled her top down. While she was quick to pull the top back up, it seemed to last a lifetime. Last day of school, a bunch of us went to the rich kid's house for a pool party. Friend and I are tossing around a football in the shallow end when one of the hottest girls at the party surfaced too quickly from diving in the pool and her bikini top shifted enough to show both of her nipples. As a pervy high school kid who wanted nothing more than to see her breasts before I died, my wish was fulfilled. So I assume you died? Not yet. But I'll die happy whenever I do. If you don't add new goals you'll end up like the guy talking about when he scored 4 touchdowns to win the big game in high school. Keep challenging yourself. Try to peek down the bank teller's blouse. Hang out in the produce section in case the cute stoker leans across the wet lettuce and becomes her own one-woman wet t-shirt contest. Seek out shagging rooms with curtains rather than doors. Push yourself, man, and live your life to the fullest. I was like 21 when my family decided to go to Sklitabun, huge water park in New Braunfels, Texas. We had been many times before, but this specific time stuck out. Around the park they have a lazy river, which is a river that goes around a small portion of the park and moves people on tubes via a wave machine. There was this chick, probably around my age plus or minus 1 year, smoking hot, who was having issues getting into her tube, so I held it down for her while she climbed on top. Well, we were near where the wave machine was, so naturally we'd be hit with the full force of the wave. As I'm holding her tube down and she's climbing on top, the wave machine sends on at us. Just as she's getting on top of the tube, she sort of leans forward to get her balance and the wave hits us. She gets flipped over. As soon as the waves passed, I looked around for her, but just as I'm about to get off my tube, she rises up from the water without a top. It was at that moment that I flashed back to 3 hours earlier when I bought the glasses fasteners that would make them float if you lost them. She probably couldn't see them through my sunglasses, but her breasts are burned into my mind. Best pair I've ever seen live. It took her a moment to realize that she had lost her top, but she quickly dipped back into the water before she found it and put it back on. Fast forward 5 years later, and she's my wife. Lol JK, I'm 26 alone and need a job, haven't seen her since. Said this before, but still holds true. When I was 5, I was sneaking around the house with my Power Rangers weapons decked out to the maximum. So I'm sneaking down the hallway, about to straight murder some bad guys, when suddenly I notice the shower is on. Steam is escaping from the slightly cracked bathroom door, and apparently this triggers my super stealth ability to walk completely undetected. I sneak up on the door with honest intentions, and what do you know, completely bare nude is Amy, my 16-year-old sister's hot friend. Breasts, bum, and this weird patch of hair there. In that glorious moment of seeing someone nude you're not related to, I was awestruck. Apparently being awestruck also makes me lose my super stealth, because Amy then realizes she's been checking herself out in the mirror with me watching. I figured I'd be in big trouble, but she just smiled and got in the shower. And that was the moment I realized I wasn't gay. I go to my friend's cabin every summer for 4th of July with his family. Whole friend's family is blessed with good genetics and his older sister is a bombshell. Well, after going tubing for a while, all the girls are on the back of the boat tanning themselves with the back of the bikinis undone. Tan lines, am I right? I'm talking to my friend's sister as she is laid down on her stomach with her eyes closed. During this conversation a spider must have walked right in front of her face. Sure enough, as soon as she opened her eyes she pushed her face and upper body away from the spider, leaving her bikini top behind. Dead eye contact for a full 2 seconds, and then straight down to her chest. We both started laughing as she laid back down really fast, as everyone else on the boat was confused because they hadn't witnessed what had went on. Since that day I have never killed a spider. I always pick them up and move them outside in hopes that one day I will have paid back that spider for being the best bro I have ever had. When I was in 6th grade I went to camp for a week with a couple hundred other kids. The boys and girls had different shower times. Boys first. When the girls were showering they left the door propped open with a barrel trash can. We weren't supposed to leave our cabins, but a buddy and I snuck out every night to a spot where we had a perfect view through the door. I saw dozens of naked girls that week. I'm not sure you know what the word accidental means, but bravo nonetheless. When I was 17, I was in a sister cities program that had students come to the US from several other countries. During their visit we all had a trip to California, set up to go to Disneyland and the beach. Well, it's me and a guy from France just hanging out on the beach watching things, and since he barely knew any English, so we weren't doing much talking, one of the girls I was crushing on got hit by a pretty big wave that knocked her bikini top down to reveal her perfect 17-year-old breasts. She didn't notice for a solid 30 seconds, but both me and the French dude both noticed and stared. After she got done fixing the top, French dude looked at me and said, "I love American breasts." What a way to bring the world together. When I was a teenager I was at a water park standing in line for the River Rapids ride. A couple of teenage girls were in line just in front of me. For some reason one of them all of a sudden pulled the top down on the other's swimsuit. Alas, that I'm horribly nearsighted and didn't have my glasses with me. I could make out just enough to know what had happened, but not enough to enjoy what had happened. That made it worse than if it hadn't happened at all. I've got one for this. Grew up in South Texas and the big water park in the area was Schlitterbahn. In the 6th grade, we got to go on a special tag field trip at the end of the year, so it was only around 20 to 25 students total. They have a boogie boarding attraction. Imagine high pressure water blasted into a wave area to mimic surfing, and every single girl in the class that tried it lost their top. If you ate it on the board and fell into the path of the blast, you were topless. Like 5 or 6 of them. All were in the latter stages of puberty and actually had filled out breasts to show. It was ducking heaven as a 6th grade boy.